The official term for it was procedural reclassification, a clean, sterile phrase for the systematic erasure of a human soul. Before his file was opened, Arthur Penn was a man. He had a job, a sister, a favorite coffee mug. But after the letter arrived, he became something else entirely. A ghost in his own life, a typo in the grand ledger of reality, waiting to be corrected. And the correction was deletion. His bank card was the first to disagree. "Card holder not found," the machine read at the grocery store. Annoyance began to curdle into unease. At the lobby of his apartment building, his key fob was inert. The green light of acceptance was replaced by a stubborn, unblinking red. He had to be let in by a neighbor who looked at him with a flicker of confusion, as if seeing a familiar ghost. The next day at work, the final wall of his reality crumbled. The Human Resources Department had no record of an Arthur Penn. Not a former employee, not a current one. It was as if 47 years of meticulous existence, of Social Security numbers and tax returns, had been collectively misplaced. He spent days in a bureaucratic haze, shuttling between sterile government offices. Each time, the result was the same: a polite but firm denial, a blank stare, a computer screen that showed no trace of him. "The system is never wrong, sir," a young woman told him, her voice devoid of empathy. He wanted to scream that he was living proof of its failure. Finally, a weary, older clerk, tired of Arthur's desperate persistence, took pity on him. He scribbled an address on a loose piece of paper, his hand shaking slightly. "Look," the clerk whispered, "I can't find you. Officially, you don't exist. But when we get cases like this, the ones that don't make sense, we send them here." Arthur looked at the paper. It wasn't a familiar department. It read, "The Department of Post-Mortem Affairs." The building was a monument to anonymity. A gray, windowless block of concrete wedged between two ordinary office buildings. There was no sign, only a single steel door. Inside, the air was cold and still. The waiting room was pristine, unnervingly clean, and furnished with chairs that looked like they had never been sat in. The only sound was a low, almost imperceptible hum. The other occupants of the room, they weren't quite solid. They sat patiently, staring forward, their forms shimmering at the edges, as if viewed through a heat haze. The clock on the wall was a cruel joke. Its hands refused to move. "Case file 77B?" The voice was soft, yet it cut through the silence like glass. A woman stood in a previously unnoticed doorway. She was immaculate, her posture perfect, her face a mask of serene neutrality. He was led into an office that was identical to the waiting room, just smaller. She sat behind a large, empty desk. "Please, be seated," she said. It was not a request. "My name is Arthur Penn," he began, his voice trembling. "There's been a terrible mistake." The woman offered a small, bloodless smile. "There are no mistakes here, Mr. Penn. Only procedures. You are no longer Mr. Penn. You are case file 77B, and your existence is pending redaction." Arthur stared. "Redaction? What are you talking about? I'm alive. I'm sitting right here." "Your physical manifestation is lagging slightly behind the paperwork. It's a common occurrence. It will rectify itself in due time." Her name was Miss Anya, and she was the head clerk. She explained that the universe, in its infinite complexity, required constant maintenance. Existence was, in her words, the ultimate bureaucracy. Sometimes, for the sake of efficiency, files were simply archived permanently. "This is insane," Arthur stammered. "You can't just erase a person." "Oh, we don't erase them. Miss Anya corrected him gently. "We redact. We compress the data of a life, the memories associated with it, and we file it away. Reality is self-healing. The world will not notice your absence because, procedurally, you were never there to begin with." Hope still flickered in Arthur's chest. "There has to be an appeal, a form I can fill out?" Miss Anya's expression shifted to something resembling sympathy. "There is a process. Form 10C, the Petition for Existential Reinstatement. But it is difficult. It requires the submission of a proof of essential impact. You must provide documented, verifiable evidence that your non-existence would create a significant paradoxical disruption to the fabric of reality." She paused. "It has never been successfully filed." Arthur left the department in a daze. The world he stepped back into was no longer his. He felt a chill as a jogger ran directly through his shoulder, shivering as if from a sudden cold draft. He stared at his reflection in a shop window and saw the street behind him, faintly visible through his own body. He was fading. In a final, desperate act, he ran to a payphone and called his sister, Hannah, the one person in the world who had known him his entire life. The phone rang 3 times. "Hello?" It was her voice. "Hannah, it's me, Arthur," he cried. There was a pause. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice polite but distant. "Who is this? I think you have the wrong number." The click of the phone hanging up was the sound of his world ending. He wandered the city, a ghost in his own life. It was in a park that he saw her, a shimmering, translucent woman from the waiting room. He approached her cautiously. "You're new," she said, her voice a faint whisper. "Still fighting it, aren't you?" Her name was Eleanor, case file 42G. She had been pending redaction for 60 years. You can't fight it. It's a system. It doesn't have malice. It only has rules. "There must be a way," Arthur pleaded. Eleanor looked at him. "There are stories," she admitted. "The system is perfect. It is logical. And because it is logical, it cannot process a paradox. They say if a file can create a true, unresolvable paradox, the system freezes it. It doesn't restore it. It doesn't erase it. It just leaves it, an error message, forever." He found his own. Penn, Arthur, case file 77B, pending redaction. His transparent hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was the sum of his quiet, orderly life. He pulled a single document from his pocket, a paper he had spent weeks creating. It was a birth certificate, flawlessly executed, for a Miss Anya, the head clerk. And in the space for the father's name, he had written Arthur Penn. He slipped the document into his own file and closed it. For a moment, nothing. Then a shelf in the distance rattled. A low hum grew into a discordant groan. A calm procedural alarm began to chime. System error. Paradox detected. Miss Anya appeared before him. Her serene mask was gone, replaced by a kind of cosmic outrage. "What have you done?" The voice was the sound of tearing metal. "I filed my proof of essential impact. How can you erase me? According to your own records, you wouldn't exist without me." The paradox hit the system like a tidal wave. An entity outside of time cannot be born. A man pending redaction cannot be a father. The logic folded in on itself. The lights went out. When they flickered back on, everything was still. He looked at his hands. They were still translucent. He hadn't been restored. He was a permanent glitch, a ghost forever haunting the halls of the system that had tried to delete him. He walked back to the waiting room and sat down. The clock on the wall was still frozen. He had won, but the price was everything. A new soul, a man confused and terrified, shimmered into existence in the chair across from him. Arthur offered him a small, sad smile. "I fought the system to prove that I existed. In the end, the proof I have is my permanent place in their records. I am no longer Arthur Penn. I am simply Case File 77B."